Arthur Curry's story begins with a storm, not just of wind and water, but of fate itself. His father, Thomas Curry, was a humble lighthouse keeper, a man devoted to guiding ships safely to shore. On a night when the sea roared like an untamed beast, Thomas discovered a mysterious woman washed ashore. She was unlike anyone he had ever seen. Her armor gleamed with an otherworldly sheen, her presence commanding yet vulnerable. This woman was Atlanta, Queen of Atlantis, fleeing the strict traditions and political strife of her underwater kingdom. Their meeting was the spark of a love that defied two worlds. In the months that followed, Atlanta and Thomas built a quiet life together, hidden away on the rocky coastline. It was here that Arthur was born, a child destined to be the bridge between land and sea. From the moment he could walk, Arthur was drawn to the ocean. The waves spoke to him. The creatures beneath seemed to respond to his thoughts. His childhood was filled with wonder, swimming alongside dolphins, exploring coral reefs, and listening to tales his mother told of a city beneath. The waves made of gold and crystal. But that peaceful life could not last. Atlanta's past came, calling royal guards from Atlantis, loyal to the throne she had abandoned, arrived to take her back. To protect her family, Atlanta returned willingly, vanishing into the depths and leaving Thomas to raise Arthur alone. This was the first wound in Arthur's heart, the realization that his life was tied to a world that had taken his mother away. As he grew older, Arthur discovered that his gifts went far beyond simple swimming skills. He could breathe underwater, withstand the crushing pressure of the deep, and communicate telepathically with sea life. In some versions of his story, his powers were honed by a mentor named Vulko, an Atlantean loyalist who saw in Arthur the future king Atlantis needed. Vulko taught him history, combat, and the responsibilities of a ruler. But Arthur resisted the idea of royalty. To him, Atlantis was a distant, alien place. The people there had rejected his mother, and by extension, him. In the comics, Arthur's early adventures were often solitary. He became a protector of the oceans, stopping poachers, confronting polluters, and battling sea monsters. But he also clashed with human authorities, who didn't always welcome his interference. On land, he was seen as an oddity, a fishman whose heroics were often overlooked compared to those of Superman or Batman. This would become a recurring theme in his life, the struggle to be taken seriously as a hero, even as he saved countless lives. In the DCEU films, Arthur's introduction is even more reluctant. He avoids the spotlight, living a nomadic life along coastal towns, helping people in need, but never sticking around long enough to be thanked. His sense of belonging is fractured to Atlantean to be human, to human to be Atlantean. He drinks in quiet bars, shrugs off questions about his heritage, and dives into the ocean to escape the world's gaze. Yet, in both comics and films, the same truth emerges. Arthur Curry was born with a destiny he could not outrun. The ocean called to him, not just as a home, but as a kingdom in need of its rightful ruler. And somewhere beneath the waves, forces were stirring. Forces that would drag him into a war between two worlds. This is where the boy who loved the sea would begin to transform into Aquaman, the king of the seven seas. But before the crown, before the throne, there would be trials, battles against monsters, both real and within his own heart. His journey had only just begun. The call to destiny is rarely gentle. For Arthur Curry, it came as a tide that could not be resisted, no matter how much he tried to swim against it. He had spent years trying to live life on his own terms, helping those in need when he felt like it, ignoring the whispers of a crown beneath the sea. But the ocean had a way of pulling him back. And when the storms of war began brewing between Atlantis and the surface world, Arthur found himself standing at the center of a conflict he had tried so hard to avoid. In the comics, this turning point came in many forms. Sometimes it was a crisis, a threat from the deep, such as the monstrous trench, or a rogue Atlantean faction that forced Arthur to take up the mantle of leadership. Other times it was personal, a call from allies like Vulko, or even his half-brother Orm, who would later become his most dangerous rival. These early arcs explored a truth Arthur struggled with. He did not choose to be a king, but the sea needed one, and if he refused, someone far worse would take his place. On the DCEU films, the rise of Aquaman begins with Atlantean emissaries tracking Arthur down on the surface. Vulko, portrayed as both a mentor and a father figure, warns him of Orm's ambitions. Orm the Ocean Master seeks to unite all the underwater kingdoms against the surface world. blaming humans for polluting the seas and endangering marine life. His plan is not without merit in Arthur's eyes, but his methods, conquest, destruction, and war, are unacceptable. Still, Arthur resists the idea of challenging Orm. The truth is, Arthur doesn't see himself as a ruler. On land, he's a drifter. Underwater, he's a half-blood outsider. Leadership feels like a prison, a set of chains disguised as a crown. And yet, when Atlantis threatens war with the surface, the choice becomes clear. Either Arthur steps up, or the world will. Drowned. In both mediums, the path to kingship is not handed to him, it must be earned. In the comics, Arthur undergoes trials, proving his worth in battle, navigating political intrigues, and earning the respect of the various Atlantean tribes. He doesn't just fight for a throne, he fights for a vision of a united world where the surface and the sea coexist. In the DCU, the trial comes in the form of a quest to retrieve the legendary Trident of Atlantis, a weapon that symbolizes the true ruler of Atlantis. It is not just a weapon, but a test. Only someone worthy, with the heart of both a king and a hero, can wield it. This journey takes Arthur deep into forgotten corners of the ocean, ancient ruins, volcanic trenches, and the hidden realm known as the Kingdom of the Trench. Along the way, he faces deadly creatures, treacherous waters, and his own self. Out by his side is Mera, a fierce warrior and princess of Zebo, one of the Atlantean kingdoms. Mera believes in Arthur even when he doesn't believe in himself. In the comics, their relationship evolves into one of the most powerful partnerships in the DC universe, two warriors bound by love, respect, and a shared vision for the future of Atlantis. In the films, Mera plays a crucial role in pushing Arthur toward his destiny, reminding him that being a king is not about bloodline, but about courage. The quest for the Trident is symbolic in every telling. It represents Arthur's transformation from a man running from his heritage to a leader embracing it. Along the way, he learns that being a king isn't about ruling over people, it's about serving them. It's about protecting not just the ocean, but the fragile balance between land and sea. When Arthur finally faces Orm, the battle is as much about ideology as it is about power. Orm fights with the conviction of a man who believes he's saving his world by destroying another. Arthur fights with the conviction of a man who believes there's another way, that peace is possible. In the comics, this rivalry spans years, with Orm sometimes portrayed as a villain, other times as a tragic figure whose hatred is born from pain. In the DCEU, their final confrontation is a visual spectacle, tridents clashing, waves roaring, and two brothers fighting not just for a crown, but for the soul of Atlantis. Arthur emerges victorious, not because he is the strongest, but because he is the bridge between two worlds. With the trident in hand, he earns the loyalty of the Atlantean armies and the respect of his people. The reluctant king has risen, and though he may never have wanted the throne, he now understands the responsibility it carries. But the ocean is vast, and even kings cannot control every current. Darker tides are still to come, bringing threats from beyond Atlantis and enemies from Arthur's own past. His reign has begun, but so have the trials that will test him like never before. Every king faces enemies. For Arthur Curry, they came from the deepest chasms of the ocean and from the darkest corners of his past. Some wore armor of Atlantean steel, others carried hatred like a blade, but none matched the ferocity of two forces that would haunt him across every medium: the merciless pirate known as Black Manta, and the monstrous realm called the Trench. In the comics, Black Manta's vendetta is one of the most personal and brutal rivalries in the DC universe. His origin varies between storylines, but the core remains the same. A tragedy at sea ignites an unquenchable hatred for Aquaman. In many versions, Manta blames Arthur for the death of his father. Sometimes, it's the result of a direct confrontation. Other times, it's a twist of fate in which Arthur's actions, or inaction, lead to irreversible loss. From that moment on, Manta dedicates his life to vengeance, forging himself into a ruthless mercenary with access to cutting-edge weaponry. His distinctive helmet, with its bug-eyed lenses that glow red, is both an iconic design and a symbol of his relentless pursuit. In the DCU, this feud is ignited with brutal clarity. Manta, a pirate alongside his father, attacks a submarine. When Aquaman intervenes, a battle ensues, and Manta's father is mortally wounded. Arthur refuses to save him, leaving Manta to cradle his dying parent. This choice plants the seed of a hatred that will shape Manta's every move. Later, Orm arms him with advanced Atlantean technology, transforming him into a formidable adversary. Their fight in the films mirrors the comic's intensity, raw, vicious, and deeply personal. Black Manta is more than a physical threat. He's a constant reminder of the fine line Arthur walks between hero and man. His presence forces Arthur to question his decisions, his morals, and the cost of his victories. In the comics, Manta's vendetta escalates to horrifying extremes, sometimes targeting Arthur's loved ones, including Mera and their son, making their clashes not just battles, but wars of the soul. But while Black Manta represents the shadow of human vengeance, the Trench embodies something far older and far more alien. Introduced in the New 52 comics by Jeff Johns, the Trench are a race of deep-sea predators that evolved in crushing darkness after Atlantis sank. They are grotesque, insect-like, and utterly without mercy. They hunt in swarms, tearing apart ships and dragging prey into the abyss. Their arrival in Aquaman's stories marked a shift toward horror, a reminder that the ocean is as terrifying as it is beautiful. In the comics, Arthur discovers the Trench when they begin attacking coastal towns, dragging civilians into the depths for food. He and Mera descend into their realm, a black, volcanic gorge where even light struggles to survive, to rescue the captured. These encounters are not mere skirmishes. Their survival against an ecosystem built to devour anything that enters. In the DCEU, the Trench sequence in Aquaman 2018 is one of the film's most visually striking and terrifying moments. As Arthur and Mera approach the hidden location of the Trident of Atlan, their boat is surrounded by thousands of these creatures. The screen becomes a living nightmare of claws, teeth, and glowing eyes. The only escape is to dive deeper into the very darkness the Trench call home, a scene that captures the raw fear and primal beauty of the ocean's unexplored depths. Together, Black Manta and the Trench symbolize the duality of challenges, the human thirst for revenge, and the primal hunger of nature. Neither is something he can truly destroy. Manta will never stop hunting him, and the Trench will always lurk at the edges of the known ocean. Arthur can only hold them at bay, one battle at a time. Yet these trials are also what define his reign. Every encounter with Manta forces Arthur to confront his own humanity. Every descent into the Trench reminds him of the delicate balance he must maintain as king, protecting his people while respecting the ancient, dangerous forces that share the sea. In both comics and films, these threats leave scars, both visible and unseen. They push Arthur to his limits, forcing him to forge alliances, strengthen his resolve, and embrace his role not just as a king, but as a guardian of the ocean's mysteries. The seas are vast, and not every monster wears a crown. Some wear a black helmet, others have no face at all, but the deepest shadow is yet to come. Beyond Manta's vendetta and the horrors of the Trench lies an even greater challenge, one that will test Arthur not just as a ruler, but as a man caught between two worlds, fighting to keep them both from falling into ruin. Being King of Atlantis was never Arthur Curry's dream. He never craved the gold of the throne or the endless halls of coral palaces. His heart belonged to open waters, to freedom. But the ocean had other plans. Destiny and the ghosts of his lineage pulled him into the role, and with the crown came the crushing weight of two worlds. In the comics, ruling Atlantis is a political labyrinth. Arthur must constantly navigate tensions between the surface world and the oceans. Hidden kingdoms, Atlantean council members often view him as an outsider, half-human, born above the waves, unfit to rule the greatest underwater civilization in history. This prejudice forces him to lead with a mixture of diplomacy and brute force, proving time and again that his loyalty lies with Atlantis. But his human heritage also keeps him tied to the surface, where threats like the Justice League's enemies, corrupt governments, and ecological disasters demand his attention. The films mirror this struggle, particularly in Aquaman 2018 and Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom 2023. In the DCEU, Arthur is thrust into kingship after defeating Orm and claiming the Trident of Atlan. His victory earns him the throne, but not universal respect. Many Atlanteans still question whether a half can truly understand their traditions and protect their future. And yet, Arthur's dual heritage becomes his greatest weapon. He understands both the politics of the deep and the chaos of the surface. But the role of king is more than war councils and ceremonies. It's a constant balancing act. Every decision Arthur makes has ripple effects. A pact with one Atlantean faction could anger another. An alliance with a surface nation could spark rebellion in the trenches of the ocean floor. In the comics, these political dilemmas are a recurring theme, showing Aquaman not just as a warrior, but as a strategist, someone forced to think 10 moves ahead while the tide of crisis rises. The threats that come with kingship are relentless. Black Manta's vendetta doesn't fade simply because Arthur wears a crown. The pirates' attacks become even more dangerous, aimed at destabilizing Arthur's reign. The trench remained a lurking horror, capable of swarming Atlantean borders without warning, and in some comic arcs, ancient forces like the dead King Atlan or the magical relics of long-lost kingdoms return to challenge his rule, questioning his right to wield the trident dot. In the DCEU, the Lost Kingdom amplifies this pressure. Arthur is no longer just a reluctant hero. He's a ruler forced to defend Atlantis against a catastrophic alliance between Black Manta and dark ancient powers. Here, the personal and political collide. Arthur must lead armies, protect his family, and make impossible choices that could cost thousands of lives. The film's narrative mirrors some of the grander comic storylines, where the stakes aren't just the survival of Atlantis, but the fate of the entire world above and below the waves. Yet kingship is not without its light. Mera stands as Arthur's partner in every sense, a queen who matches his strength, sharpens his resolve, and challenges his stubbornness. Their partnership, in both comics and films, is one of mutual respect and shared burden. Together, they represent the future of Atlantis, a blend of tradition and change, power and compassion. Family, however, is both Arthur's strength and vulnerability. In some comic arcs, the couple's son becomes a target for Manta's wrath, a devastating storyline that cements Manta as one of DC's most ruthless villains. In the films, while the narrative is less tragic, the presence of family still deepens Arthur's motivations, making every battle more personal. What makes Aquaman's reign compelling in any medium is that it's never purely about strength. Yes, Arthur can command the creatures of the sea, shatter steel with his fists, and withstand the pressures of the deepest trenches, but his true power lies in his ability to bridge two worlds that have every reason to hate each other. The surface sees the ocean as a resource. Atlantis sees the surface as a threat. Arthur sees both as home. By the end of his journey, in comics and films alike, Aquaman emerges not just as the King of Atlantis, but as a symbol of unity. His story is about more than battles and crowns. It's about the courage to stand between two realms and refuse to let either one fall. It's about shouldering the burden of a title he never wanted and transforming it into a legacy that will endure long after the tide has washed away the scars of war. Still, Arthur knows peace is a fleeting thing. The ocean is vast, and somewhere, in its depths, new threats are always stirring. But with Mera at his side, allies in the Justice League, and the strength of a king who was forged in two worlds, Aquaman is ready. For every shadow in the deep, there will be a light to meet it, and as the waves rise and crash, the King of Atlantis will stand, unshaken, unbroken, and forever caught between the call of the surface and the heartbeat of the sea.